Greetings, everyone. This is Brother David again, and I hope you all are doing well today. In today's video, I wanted to continue our walk through Holy Week. In yesterday's video, we walked through the first few days of Holy Week: Holy Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Maundy, Thursday. We ended that video with Jesus being in the Garden of Gethsemane with Peter, James, and John, and they had just been joined by Judas and all those who came to arrest Jesus that night. This picture is the view of the Temple Mount from the Garden of Gethsemane, and Jesus would have seen the city from a similar vantage point as he was taken back to Caiaphas' house for his trial before the Sanhedrin very early in the morning on Good Friday. If you'll remember, it was these same steps that Jesus and his disciples traveled down on the way to the Garden of Gethsemane after the Last Supper, that he was brought back up to Caiaphas' house. Now, the following pictures show us pieces of art that commemorate Jesus traveling up and down these significant steps. Now, after he was brought to the high priest's house, remember, the location of Caiaphas' house was maybe a 5-minute walk from the upper room where Jesus had met with his disciples just a few hours before. This next picture shows us the pit, also known as the sacred pit, that tradition says Jesus was kept in while awaiting trial before the Sanhedrin. This pit and Caiaphas' house are all on the grounds of the Church of St. Peter in Gallicantu. Now, Gallicantu is Latin for before the cock crows. Therefore, you can imagine what else happened at this location. Tradition tells us that it was in this very courtyard that Peter denied Jesus 3 times. Now, I distinctly remember that eerie feeling of imagining myself in Peter's place in that courtyard, while just a few feet away, Jesus was being tried by the Sanhedrin. It was after this trial that Jesus is taken from Caiaphas' house to his trial before Pontius Pilate. Now remember, Caiaphas' house is on the southwest corner of the city of Jerusalem at that time, and Pontius Pilate's home or his residence would have been on the north side of the city. This would have been probably a 20 to 30 minute walk across the city. And we learn from Scripture that Jesus has trials before both Pilate and King Herod, most likely in 2 separate locations that would have probably been 10 or 15 minute walks apart. Now, I mention all of this to try to give you a feeling of distances and proximity, to figure out how far things were so that you can get a sense of the toll that this was taking on Jesus as he went back and forth. But I say this also because it has brought up things in my own mind. One of the things that struck me as I thought about the events of the morning of Good Friday, as Jesus went back and forth, is, did the people of the city know what was going on? Did they know what was going on when they saw Jesus going back and forth? Did they know who he was? Did they know what would ultimately happen to him? Now, it was after his final appearance before Pilate that he was condemned. Now, the place where he has traditionally been condemned is a place called Antonia Fortress, which again is on the north side of the city, directly connected to the Temple Mount. It was here that Jesus is condemned, beaten, humiliated, and forced to carry his cross. Now, the place of condemnation, or the path, I should say, from his place of condemnation moving west to the place of his crucifixion is known as the Via Dolorosa, or the Way of Sorrow. Now, I remember walking this pathway and being so fascinated by the topography and how difficult it must have been for Jesus to carry his cross all that way, given the circumstances that he was having to endure. Now, for those of you who are familiar with the Via Dolorosa, there are numerous stops along the way that commemorate Jesus' journey to Golgotha. One of the most impactful ones for me was the location that commemorates Simon the Cyrene picking up and carrying Jesus' cross for him. We also had an amazing opportunity to put our hand where tradition says Jesus steadied himself as he struggled along his journey. Now, I want to close this video by sharing with you a couple of pictures from the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and the Garden Tomb. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre is the traditional site of Jesus' crucifixion and burial, but the Garden Tomb is another possible location for those events, and these two stand about a 10 or 15 minute walk from one another. This picture is of the stone slab on which tradition says Jesus was laid after his crucifixion. I'll be totally honest with you, though, and say that I didn't get a lot of pictures of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre because it was all so much to take in. But I did get these pictures of what is considered to be the hill on which Jesus was crucified, which was a good 10 or 15 feet higher than all the ground around it. Finally, I'll share with you two pictures that claim to be the location where Jesus was laid to rest on that first Good Friday. The reality is that whether these places are the actual locations or not is secondary to the amazing work that Jesus accomplished for us on the cross. I invite you to join us on Friday night at 6:30 as we gather together online and remember the amazing sacrifice of Jesus on Good Friday. You can access the service through the church's YouTube channel or follow the link that we will share with you tomorrow afternoon. I hope everyone is doing well and having a great day. God bless.